Okay, we will wait a couple of minutes just to let everybody catch up. Okay, inshallah. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So inshallah, we have our usual weekly Q&A session. Alhamdulillah. So first of all, I'd like to start by wishing all of you Ramadan Mubarak. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make this month a month of blessings for all of us and to make us all from those who stand and fast the month of Ramadan, imanan wa ihtisaba, with iman and expecting the reward from Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's because of a hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Man sama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaba, ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbih. Whoever fasts Ramadan with iman and expecting the reward from Allah, then all of their previous sins will be forgiven. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to be going through your questions that were pre-submitted. They had already been submitted via the Google form. For those people who are interested, I believe there's a link on the Masjid Facebook page to the form itself, so that you guys can fill out the form, inshallah, for your questions to be answered. And if there are any important questions that get posted up in the comments, inshallah, then I will do my best to address those as well, inshallah, if we have time. But we're going to give preference to those questions that we had been asked earlier on in the week. So the very first question that I have right here, this question says, is it permissible to play games that involve dice or cards? As for dice, it's absolutely not permissible. There are ahadith which prohibit that. And I don't believe that it's allowed for a Muslim to play with dice at all. As for cards, then there is a fatwa from the Lajna al-Da'ima, the permanent committee. And their fatwa, it says that playing cards is not permitted, even if there is no money involved, because the problem is that it distracts people from the remembrance of Allah and the prayer, and it is a means that may lead to gambling, which is prohibited in the Qur'an. And then they mentioned the ayah. So in this regard, I don't think it's permissible for a Muslim to play cards without, even if those cards don't involve gambling. And I don't think that it's permissible for them to play with dice. But there remains a question. Some of the card games, like the one that is mentioned here, Uno, I'm not really sure about what exactly Uno is, but the card games, some of them are not really cards. And you're playing with cards, but they're not card games as such. You know, like I'll give an example, like when the kids play Snap. When the kids play Snap, you know, they have the cards, and when the two cards come with the same image, they play Snap. I don't really see there to be anything, inshallah, wrong in that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Because these are not the cards that the ulama are speaking about in their fatwa, which are the cards which people play and they gamble with, and they play card games with, where they have the different what do they call them, like the spades and the hearts and the clubs and all of that stuff, and that which resembles them. I don't know whether Uno resembles that or not, but you know, games that just happen to involve a card, like the kids playing Snap, I don't really see there to be, inshallah ta'ala, any difficulty or any issue with that, providing that it doesn't take people away from the dhikr of Allah. So it's not something somebody is engaged in all the time, and it's not something that resembles gambling or is used for gambling in any way. But as for the regular card games people play with the spades and the clubs and the hearts and the diamonds and the king and the queen and the ace and all of that, then I don't think it's allowed for a Muslim to do this based upon this fatwa, which came from a reliable source. Okay, that was our first question. Our next question, the permissibility of taking pictures on the phone, I had spoken about that in the last one. some of these questions, sometimes what happens is the questions come because the way the responses are, sometimes people submit multiple responses. But I'd already answered that question about the pictures on the phone in the previous video, so you can refer back to that on the Masjid's Facebook page. What is the best time to pray taraweeh at home? So first of all, as it relates to rulings on Ramadan and benefits from Ramadan, I would just like to remind everyone that there's a really nice program going on right now, which is a program that it's a project I'm very much involved in. It's called AMAU at Home. It's part of the Madrasa Umariya project. You can find it at AMAU ATHOME, AMAU at Home. And Alhamdulillah, there's so many benefits on there, and there's so much going on right now. And Sheikh Abdurrahman Hassan, he's doing some stuff on Ramadan rulings and things like that. But I'm just going to summarize a couple of points here. First of all, that if you are able to delay Salatul Isha, then this is the Sunnah. So when you're praying at home, and Sheikh Abdurrahman, he has a full lecture on praying at home, which is a part of the AMAU at Home program. And it's completely free. There's no cost for you to register and sign up, inshallah. He has an entire lecture on praying at home. But I'm just going to take a couple of points of benefit, inshallah, from that. So first of all, praying at home, it is from the Sunnah for you to assign a place in your home to pray, because we're all at home now, and because of the lockdown, it's from the Sunnah to assign yourself a musalla in your house. So that could be a room. It could be part of a room if you don't have a full room. We have in our living room, we just made like a half of the room, or a little bit less than that, into an area where we regularly do our prayers, and we treat it like a masjid. So we actually, the kids, one of them goes and calls the adhan. They go up there and call the adhan. Even at Maghrib, when everyone's in the kitchen getting ready to break their fast, still one of my kids goes up and gives the adhan from the place which is where we're going to pray. And then likewise we go and we always pray in that place. So it's like having a small masjid within your house. And of course, all of the prayers, it is recommended to pray them at the earliest time. And that's why when the Prophet ﷺ was asked which of the deeds are best or most beloved to Allah, he said, As-salatu fi awwali waqtiha, the prayer at its earliest time, except for Salatul Isha. Salatul Isha, if you are praying and it's not difficult for you to delay the Isha prayer, then you should delay the Isha prayer, if it's not difficult for you. But you don't delay it beyond half the night, if it's not difficult. As for if you've got kids and it's hard for you, pray Isha at the earliest time and don't worry about it, inshallah. But if you can delay the Isha a little bit, perhaps to let a third of the night pass, for example. So I just give you the example of Newcastle, because this live stream is coming to you from Newcastle Central Masjid. So we should give the example of Newcastle. If Maghrib is at 8:30 and if Fajr is at 3:15, as an example, then 8:30 we have half an hour till 9 o'clock and 3 hours until midnight. So it's 3.5 hours. And then we have 3 hours that make 6.5 hours. And we have, let's just round it up. Let's just say there's 7 hours between Maghrib and Fajr. So if we take that, or actually we said 6 hours and 45 minutes. So we'll break that down into 2 hours and 15 minutes. So if a person can delay Isha by an hour and a half or 2 hours, or they can delay Isha by half an hour, then inshallah ta'ala this is good. But if it's difficult because they have the children with them and they want to pray Isha at the earliest time, then there's no harm in that either. And the Prophet ﷺ used to pray Isha at his earliest time for the sake of his companions and making it easy for them. But when this wasn't a problem, then he would delay the Isha prayer, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, that's Isha. Now we come to the issue of taraweeh. So the issue of praying at night in Ramadan, and taraweeh is typically what we refer to when you pray in jama'ah after Salatul Isha. And sometimes we refer to it as Qiyamul Layl when you pray, usually in terms of these days. I'm not talking about the Salaf, rahimahumullah, the early generations, did they use the same terminology? But in these days, we usually refer to Tahajjud or Al-Qiyam when we pray the same prayer, because it's the same prayer. We pray it in the last third of the night. Now here we have two separate things to give consideration to. The first thing that we have to give consideration to is that whoever begins with the Imam and finishes with the Imam, it's written that they prayed the whole night. So if it's easy for a person, if it's hard for a person to pray late in the night, and they want to get as much reward as they can, but they can't stay up until late in the night, then there's no harm in them praying Salatul Isha at the early time, the earliest time which it comes in Newcastle. I think it is like about 10:45 or 10:50, something like that. They pray from that time when it comes in, and then they pray after that taraweeh. The family prays in jama'ah all together. All the family members come together and they pray in the jama'ah. And then when the imam who was leading them in the house finishes, then it's written for them that they prayed the whole night. That's to make things easy for people. But there is a great virtue for praying in the last third of the night. And this is the time in which Allah Azza wa Jal descends. And He says, is there anyone asking me so that I can give him? And is there anyone seeking forgiveness so that I can forgive him? And so on. So this is a time which has the most blessings in the last third of the night. So if a person is able to stay up until the last third of the night, or to go to sleep and wake up in the last third of the night, and to pray some or all of their prayers, or to pray additional prayers at that time, then this is even more beneficial, inshaAllah ta'ala, and especially in the last 10 days of Ramadan, or the last 10 nights of Ramadan, where we are looking for Laylatul Qadr. And we should be looking for Laylatul Qadr on all of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, whether they're even or odd, because of the ahadith that indicate that Laylatul Qadr can be determined from the end of the month. And so it may be that the even nights become odd and the odd nights become even. So it's important that a person in all of the last 10 nights of Ramadan is looking for Laylatul Qadr. So what are the different options then? There are a wide variety of options, and this has been made easy for you. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you and He doesn't want difficulty for you. There is no harm in you praying taraweeh together in a jama'ah after Isha, and then you finish it after Isha and you all go to sleep. There is no harm in you praying after Isha and you finish after Isha, but then some of you who are in the family who want to pray more can get up in the last third of the night and you can pray more. But the only condition is that you shouldn't make witr twice in one night. So if you prayed witr after Isha, don't pray witr again. Don't pray witr again when you get up for tahajjud or qiyam. And if a person, like some of the scholars, they said that you add another rak'ah to your witr after Isha, and then you pray witr again in the last part of the night. Personally, I'm not a great fan of this. I think it's better if you just pray witr with the imam, and then pray your tahajjud and your qiyam, but don't pray witr twice in one night. And if you want to arrange it so that you split the jama'ah, so that you pray for a while and then you pray again later on in the night, and inshaAllah ta'ala, all of this, there is no harm in it, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, because there is no distinction between these prayers in terms of taraweeh and qiyamul layl and tahajjud in Ramadan. All of them are the same, inshaAllah. So there is no harm in a person how they organize it. For example, if they decide to pray half of it after Isha, and then they go and have some food, and then they come back again and they complete the second half, inshallah, there is no harm in this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And there is no harm in a person who does this individually. Like there's a jama'ah that takes place at Isha time, and they pray the jama'ah at Isha time in the house with everyone together, and then they finish, and then some of the family members get up and they pray in the middle of the night. They pray in the early portion of the night. Inshallah ta'ala, this is something which you can choose what is best for you guys in terms of your household. Definitely praying in the last third of the night is more virtuous, but the difficulty is that many people will not be able to achieve it. Many people will say, I'm going to wake up, but then they don't wake up. Or they say that, I intend to pray, but then they're not able to pray. So I would advise people, make sure that if you're going to pray in the last part of the night, that you definitely get up, and otherwise pray after Isha, and maybe individually you can get up in the last part of the night and and pray whatever Allah Azza wa Jalla has made easy for you to pray. The matter is, inshallah ta'ala, not one that there should be any great difficulty or any great concern about. I'm going to see if this is translated in English. I mean, generally, like I'm just looking through some of the different fatwa and things like that. But generally speaking, the statements that the scholars make is just that the jama'ah is better than praying individually. Like somebody who asked the question, should I go and pray in the jama'ah, or should I pray taraweeh by myself? Then praying in the jama'ah is better for you than praying by yourself. But since we're all at home anyway, it's more a case of just how we organize our. It's more a case of how we just organize our taraweeh in terms of the household. I was just going through, sorry, I know I'm quiet for a while. I was just going through some of the different statements of the scholars regarding delaying the taraweeh until the last part of the night and whether there's a virtue in that or not. And some of them said that the Sahaba prayed in the early part of the night. They didn't pray in the last part of the night in Ramadan when they gathered the people together. And some of them said that this is because a lot of people would miss the taraweeh prayer if they were to delay it until the last part of the night. So I think inshallah ta'ala what we've said is enough on that topic inshallah. The issue is inshallah not one that is bi'idhnillahi ta'ala difficult inshallah ta'ala. A person can go with what is easy for them. But what I wanted to emphasize here is that there's a great virtue in praying after Salatul Isha, and a person shouldn't feel like bad that they're praying after Isha and they're not praying in the last third of the night. Now this is what the Sahaba radiallahu anhum did in Ramadan. And there is no harm, inshallah ta'ala, in that, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. There's a lot of good in it. So a person shouldn't kind of beat themselves up or feel bad that they're praying in after Salatul Isha. Rather, some of the scholars, they said this is the most deserving time of praying because of the fact that this is the time the Sahaba got together, and likewise because this is the time where most of the people can manage it, as opposed to the last third of the night where maybe many people will not be able to get up and pray. So hopefully, inshallah, that was clear. Okay, this next question. May I know if it's permissible to work as a prior authorization nurse for a medical insurance company? The job is to review the medical necessity of requested medical and surgical procedures from hospitals or clinics and then approve or disapprove the request. I was told that this is allowed because the job is at the implementation level. Concerns to asking requests for gender reassignment surgery are usually easily approvable. Well, I feel I would be reluctant because of two things here. First of all, working for an insurance company involves working for a company when you're employed by that company. And I'm not talking about you're employed by a hospital and part of your job is to review an insurance claim. That's different. But the one who is employed by an insurance company, knowing that the insurance company, their means of earning and their income is not permissible, and then you have a job for them, even if that job for them is not in itself selling the people insurance, but subhanAllah, I don't feel that's not right for a person to do. And then also the second issue of people getting the requests for things like gender reassignment surgery and things like that, I don't think this is something which is a person should be involved in at all. And I do feel that there is a difference between someone who works in a hospital and is kind of, as part of their job, they have to deal with an insurance form or something like that. That has a separate issue to discuss. That's a whole different issue. Versus the one who is employed by an insurance company to do a job for them. I don't think this is befitting for a Muslim to do, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. If someone has a problem that causes them to intermittently leak a small amount of urine when they go to pray, and they have to do wudu a few times in short succession due to this, how many times do they have to keep doing wudu before they can stop? First of all, Sheikh Saleh al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he mentioned a benefit with regard to this. And he mentioned that the majority of people who have this problem, they only have this problem for a short period of time after going to the bathroom. And these people, it is obligatory upon them to spend longer in the bathroom, to take their time, and to separate between going to the bathroom and making wudu so that they don't have this problem. Like, most people don't have this problem throughout the day. Some people do, don't get me wrong, but the vast majority of people who have this kind of issue that they have, it is only around the time that they go to the bathroom. So if the person asking the question is someone like that, then what is obligatory for you to do is not to even think about praying until you have first gone to the bathroom and given it time. And what a person could do is they can use the bathroom, clean themselves. They could put a tissue or a pad or something similar, and then they can go and they can spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes and allow this problem to finish itself, then go and throw away the pad or throw away the tissue, clean themselves again and make wudu and pray without any problem. That is the overwhelming majority of people, that this is their situation. That even the people who say that this happens all the time, most of them, like the overwhelming majority of people, this is the reality of the situation. Is if they just went to the bathroom and then they put a pad or a tissue or something like that, and then they just went and spent 20 minutes outside of the bathroom just doing their work or getting on with things, and then they came and went back, remove the tissue, clean themselves and make wudu, they would not have this problem, because it's very rare that a person has this continuously. However, some people do have it continuously. And if a person has it continuously, it's not the case that they should be making wudu again and again. If a person truly has it really continuously, and what I mentioned just now doesn't work for you because it is absolutely continuous, and even after 20 minutes out of the bathroom or half an hour and you go back in, still again it comes out after, when you start praying. So this person, they make wudu once after the adhan and then they pray, and they do not make wudu again even if something comes out. So what this person does that has continuous discharge of urine, what that person does is they go to the bathroom and it's important that wudu they make is after the adhan. and they clean themselves. They put a fresh tissue or a pad, and they have to use a tissue or a pad, and they make fresh wudu, and they go and they pray no matter what happens. Two things to highlight here. Number one, they should have some kind of tissue or pad at that time when they are praying. Number two, it doesn't matter if some urine comes out during the time that they are praying, if this is the problem which is continuous. But before you apply that to yourself, please make sure that it's not just a temporary problem, because most people, it is temporary. In 20 minutes, half an hour, the problem goes away. It only lasts immediately after going to the bathroom. It's not something which lasts continuously throughout the day. There are people medically who have this problem, shafahumullah wa afahum, may Allah give them complete shifa. But most people don't have that problem. Most people, it is temporary around the time of using the bathroom, and after that, they'll be absolutely fine, and they can pray as normal without needing to break their wudu at all. But as for the person who truly has this continuously, let them go to the bathroom, clean themselves, put a fresh tissue or a fresh pad of some sort, and then let them make wudu, let them go and let them pray. And they have to do that for every salah. They can't keep their wudu between the salawat, and they have to, between the prayers, they have to do that for every salah. And whoever wants more information about this, they can go to our explanation of Bulugh al-Maram, the one that is on the Kalima UAE YouTube, K-A-L-E-M-A-H UAE, Kalima UAE, and there's about over 100 videos. And if they look at the titles until they get to the topic of the issue of the person who has this kind of issue of discharge all the time, then this is one of the titles will be, it's either in the chapter of istihada, the woman that has continuous bleeding, or it might be on the chapter of cleaning yourself after you go to the bathroom. But they're all, we discussed it more than once in some detail, inshallah ta'ala. But that's the summary, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Okay, just going to the next question. Beautiful question. Beautiful question. What is Aqeedah, and is it important to learn? May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you. Aqeedah is the most important thing that anyone can learn. And first of all, we have to understand what Aqeedah is. So Aqeedah, it comes from the Arabic word Aqadah, al-ain and a qaf and a dal. That's the A, Q, and the D in the word. In English, when we write the A and the Q and the D. And this is something, it means generally all of the meanings, they come back to a-rabt. They come back to tying something together and binding something together. So Aqeedah are those fundamental beliefs that a Muslim holds in their heart and gives truth to through their actions about Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the things that Allah commanded us to believe in as Muslims. And it's what makes you different in terms of from other religions, and it's what makes you different in terms of the different groups and sects that exist within Islam. So it's the most important thing, and it's what the Prophet ﷺ began teaching in Mecca when he began his prophethood, and he began to teach the people. He taught the people the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and he taught the people the essentials of Iman. And Iman in that sense is a synonym of Aqeedah in that sense, when it's used like that, like the issues relating to Iman and relating to what Muslims have to believe in, believing in Allah and His angels, His messengers and His books and the last day, and believing in Qadr, the good of it and the bad of it, and the belief about the Sahaba and what we believe about the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and so on. And these are fundamental things that define who you are as a Muslim. They are really, really important because they distinguish a Muslim from other religions, because what makes you different, I mean, Christian says, I believe in Allah. An Arab Christian says, I believe in Allah. An Arabic speaking Jew says, I believe in Allah. What makes them different? What makes them different is their Aqeedah. And what do you believe in Allah? Do you believe that Allah is one, alone, and with no partner? Do you believe that Allah has a son? Do you believe, these are fundamental parts about what it means to believe in Allah. And so this is a part of your Aqeedah, and it's absolutely essential. And also within Islam, and as you know, we're not going to hide the fact that there are many different sects and groups within Islam. And I'm not just talking about the Sunni, Shi'i type of thing, but even within those, there are many, many different groups. And the Prophet ﷺ told us of this. He said, فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Whoever of you lives for a long time is going to see a great deal of differing. So stick to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided khulafa after me. So ultimately, you shouldn't be surprised to see different groups and sects appearing with different ideologies. And what makes you different from them is your aqeedah. What are the fundamental things you believe in? So this is essential for every Muslim to learn. I have got some courses on that. If you are interested to learn more, you can go to YouTube, type in Muhammad Tim, Aqeedah, and there are some little courses on that, like we did for a day, 4-part courses, 2-part, 1-part lectures. They just give you a little bit of an overview about that. But in terms of the early generations, it's fairly synonymous with the word Iman, in the sense that the early generations, they would more likely use the word Iman to describe these issues. They would say that it's basically matters of faith. But the two words are different. Aqeedah is a bit more precise in the sense that it's talking about the matters that you believe in and that define you as a Muslim. And the word Iman is a bit more general than that. But the two could be used in a way that's synonymous. They could be used synonymously in this sense. Okay. Okay. Who bears the responsibility to pay the wife's zakah? If the wife is earning on her gold jewelry, is it the husband or the wife? It doesn't matter whether the wife is earning or not. The responsibility on her jewelry is hers. It's not her husband's. The responsibility of zakah is an individual responsibility. It's not the husband's responsibility to pay it. If he wishes to pay it, he can, but he has to inform her before he pays it. If he wishes to pay it, he can, but he has to inform her before he pays it, because she has to have the niyyah. Like, he has to say to her that I'm going to pay your zakah on your jewelry. And she says, yeah, okay. So that she has the niyyah, she has the intention for that zakah. Otherwise, if he pays it in secret, she paid zakah without intending to pay it. Like the person who put money into a charity box and didn't intend for it to be zakah. So it's not zakah. Ultimately, it can only be zakah if he tells her about it beforehand. So he should tell her about it beforehand, and he can pay but that's a sadaqah from his behalf, and it's like a charity for him. But otherwise, it is the wife's responsibility, whether she's earning or not. Her zakah is her responsibility. Her zakah is her responsibility. As for zakatul fitr, no, this is the husband's responsibility for zakatul fitr at the end of Ramadan. But that's the head of the household. But as for personal zakah, if she has money, she has jewelry, that is hers, it's her responsibility to pay the zakah. The only situation this differs in is the situation of the person who is unable to take responsibility, like the one who is insane, or the orphan, or the small child that is not able to take responsibility. So it becomes a responsibility of their wali, their guardian, to pay the zakah on their behalf. But they still pay it from the orphan's money, from the child's money. The guardian doesn't pay the zakah. The guardian doesn't pay the zakah from his money. The guardian pays the zakah from the orphan's money. And likewise with regard to gold jewelry, whether she's earning or not, it is her responsibility. If she's not earning, how does she pay? She has to sell some of her jewelry. She has to sell one piece of her jewelry to get the money to pay the zakah, if she has no money apart from that. So hopefully that made that one clear. Okay, that one we've answered already. If a Muslim owns a halal restaurant or takeaway, but does things that are not befitting for a Muslim to do, are we allowed to eat from these places? For example, they hang up taraweeh, or at Christmas time they put up a tree, and so on. I'm going to pass on that one, inshallah ta'ala, and look into it in a bit more detail, inshallah. So I don't feel confident to answer. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. I feel like it's not befitting for them it's not befitting to eat there, but if the food is halal, we'll look into it, inshallah ta'ala. We've already answered the question regarding feeding the poor when a sister was pregnant, and we said she has to make up the fast. We've answered that one already. Okay. I keep trying to be better every day. I keep sinning and cursing and lashing out. I repent. I try to be grateful, help others, be sincere, but I'm struggling and it affects my salah, etc. How can I be saved from being one of the hypocrites? I feel like my heart is already dead. My answer to the person who asked this question, may Allah Azza wa Jal bless you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify my heart and your heart. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make for you a way out of this difficulty. Wallahi, there is nothing in this except for the shaitan. Meaning that the shaitan is the one that is making you feel like you're one of the hypocrites. There is nothing hypocritical about what you mentioned. Trying to be better, trying to be grateful, trying to help people, and sinning. If this is hypocrisy, then there is no one on this earth except for a hypocrite. Because this is the situation of every one of Bani Adam. Every one of us is trying to be better, and every one of us sins. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu Bani Adam khata wa khayrul khata'in at-tawwabun." All of the children of Adam commit sins, and the best of those who sin are those who repent. And there are ahadith that mention a person that commits a sin, and that person, they commit a sin, and I'll get you the reference of the hadith. It's the hadith of Abi Hurairah in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim. And it's a hadith Qudusi that the Prophet ﷺ narrates from Allah Azza wa Jal, in which he said, أَذْنَبَ عَبْدٌ ذَنْبًا. There was a slave who committed a sin. فَقَالَ اللَّهُمَّ اغْفِرْ لِي ذَنْبِي. He said, Allah, forgive my sin for me. فَقَالَ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى أَذْنَبَ عَبْدِي ذَنْبًا فَعَلِمَ أَنَّ لَهُ رَبًّا يَغْفِرُ الذَّنْبَ وَيَأْخُذُ بِالذَّنْبِ. He said, my slave committed a sin, and he knows that he has a Lord that forgives sins and punishes for sins. ثُمَّ عَادَ فَأَذْنَبَ. Then the person, they came back and they did the same sin again. فَقَالَ أَيْ رَبِّ. He said, my Lord, اغْفِرْ لِي ذَنْبِي. Forgive my sin. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He said, أَذْنَبَ عَبْدِي ذَنْبًا فَعَلِمَ أَنَّ لَهُ رَبًّا يَغْفِرُ الذَّنْبَ وَيَأْخُذُ بِالذَّنْبِ. And he knows that he has a Lord. My slave committed a sin, and he knows that he has a Lord that forgives sins and punishes for sins. ثُمَّ عَادَ فَأَذْنَبَ. Then he does it again. فَقَالَ أَيْ رَبِّ. And he says, my Lord, اغْفِرْ لِي ذَنْبِي. Forgive me my sin. فقال تبارك وتعالى أذنب عبدي ذنبا فعلم أن له ربا يغفر الذنب ويأخذ بالذنب. He said, my slave committed the same sin again, and he knows that my slave committed a sin, and he knows that he has a Lord that forgives sins and punishes for sins. قد غفرت لعبدي فليفعل ما شاء. I have certainly forgiven my slave, let him do whatever he wants. And the hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. For subhanallah, a person shouldn't beat themselves up in the sense that this is something that happens to everybody. But at the same time, we don't take that sin lightly, and we don't let it be something light in our eyes. And the fact that you've asked this question and you're struggling with it, that makes me think that you're not taking it lightly. And that's the main thing. You're not taking it lightly. You keep on making istighfar. You keep on turning to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, the questioner mentioned cursing and lashing out. So this feels to me, and it's difficult to tell from the question, that the sin is one of anger and related to anger. And there's no doubt that this comes from the shaitan. And that's why I said the only thing I see in this is the effort of the shaitan, in the sense that the shaitan is the one that is making the person cursing and lashing out. And the shaitan is the one that makes the person feel like a hypocrite. And that's not right. That's not right. Rather, the person, as long as they're struggling and asking Allah to forgive them and trying to be better and keep trying to leave the sin, and then again, and every time they sincerely ask Allah to forgive them, and then they fall into it again, and then they keep asking Allah to forgive them, then this is sarihul iman. This is the reality of pure iman. It's not right for a person to say that this is hypocrisy or this is nifaq. It's not like that. But no doubt the sins have an effect on the heart. And the sins cause the heart to feel like it's dead. And what it requires to do this is to purify the heart, what we call tazkiyatun nafs, purifying the heart with a tawbah and turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what's required, inshaAllah ta'ala, from a person, to turn back and to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to purify their heart, to read the Qur'an, to ask Allah to forgive them, to do as many good deeds as they can. Every time they do a bad deed, to follow it up with a good deed. Because like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ittaqillaha haythuma kunt, have taqwa of Allah wherever you are. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا, and follow up the bad deed with the good deed, it will wipe it out. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ, and treat the people with the best of manners. So no doubt, you follow up a bad deed with a good deed. But it seems to me like this anger is coming from the shaitan. And that feels to me like the person should be doing the means possible to keep the shaitan away from them. And they should be careful and cautious that they're doing the adhkar in the morning and after Fajr and after Asr and after the prayers and before they go to sleep, and that they're doing the things to keep the shaitan away from them, because it seems like this cursing and lashing out, like it's coming from the shaitan. And maybe if a person really feels it's out of control and it's not within their ability to control it, then maybe even they can try ruqya shar'iyya as well. They could try some ruqya to see if this is really the shaitan is causing this problem. But otherwise, I think I have also some discussion or some lectures which talk about anger and how to control anger. And that's what a person should look at. But what I would recommend, just as one thing I can recommend in the time that we have, is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Indeed, those people who have taqwa of Allah, those people who have taqwa of Allah, if they are touched by something from the shaitan, like the shaitan causes them to get angry, or the shaitan causes them an effect upon them, they remember and then they can see clearly. The scholars of tafsir, broadly speaking, they have two opinions about the word they remember. One is that it means they remember Allah, and the other one is that it means they remember that this is from the shaitan. So I'm going to advise the person who asked this question both of these two things. That number one, remember that this cursing and lashing out is coming from the shaitan. And number two, remember Allah when it happens. So you say something bad and you say, Astaghfirullah, Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, Alhamdulillah. You say, Astaghfirullah al-azim alladhi la ilaha illa hu al-hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. And all of the different types of words of istighfar. You say good words afterwards. And then if you said something bad to someone or you insulted them, you apologize to them and you ask Allah to bless them. And you wipe out the bad deed with the good deed. So inshallah ta'ala, that's what you need to do, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. Alhamdulillah, by the blessing of Allah, I've been able to memorize a few juz. I revise by reading from the Mus'haf a juz a day and memorizing more each day also. However, despite this, I don't have full confidence that if I was to read from memory, I may get 80-90% correct by the help of Allah. What would your advice be so that I can improve? Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah Azza wa Jal, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless all of us by reminding us or allowing us to remember what we have been caused to forget, and by teaching us what we don't know of the Qur'an, and by allowing us to recite the Qur'an in a way that is pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jal throughout the day and the night. And that is why we say in some of the du'as, there is a du'a in which we say, Allahumma inna nas'aluka bi kulli ismin huwa lak sammayta bihi nafsak aw anzaltahu fi kitabik aw 'allamtahu ahadan min khalqik aw ista'tharta bihi fil 'ilmi al-ghaybi 'indak an taj'al al-Qur'an al-'azima ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وذهاب أحزاننا وجلاء همومنا. And then there is an extension of it. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا. Oh Allah, allow us to remember what we were caused to forget, and allow us to learn what we didn't know. So this dua and the similar du'as in terms of asking Allah Azza wa Jal for this is something that is beneficial. But I think what is most important is people understand that there are two types of hifth. There is a true hifth and there is a false hifth. True, and both of them look like hifth. Both of them feel like hifth. You do the hifth and you say, Alhamdulillah, hafidhtu, I'm hafidh, I've done it. But when you actually come to it, you found that hifth is not where it should be. And this really is down to a mistake in the way that we memorize the Qur'an and the way we revise the Qur'an. The way we memorize and the way that we memorize and the way that we revise the Qur'an and the way that we move on before we have truly memorized that particular segment. Because there is a false hifth, like there is, in Fajr, there is a false Fajr and a true Fajr. There's a Fajr that comes before Fajr time and it looks like Fajr, but it's not really Fajr. Likewise, there's a hifth that comes when you memorize. It looks like hifth, but it's not really hifth. Maybe it will last you 2 days, maybe it lasts you a week. Maybe even you can lead the salah and read that surah. But when you come back to it, for example, a few days later or a couple of weeks later or a month later, whatever, it's not there and the mistakes are there. So it's really, really important that we have the right methodology for memorizing the Qur'an and we're not fooled by the fake hifth. Now, I think this is something that needs a full lecture, to be honest with you. And it would be amazing if I could, if we could get someone to give a really good lecture on this who really understands it very well. Maybe I feel about myself that I fall into the same thing you fall into. But if we could get, somebody to give a lecture on this topic. But I think that there are some pointers that I would make. First of all, you need to repeat the ayah more times than you think you do. You think you can memorize the ayah, and I don't mean the questioner at all. Allah bless you. I mean, generally, we think we can memorize the ayah with 10 times repetition. And yes, even if I give you an ayah now that, let's say, most of the people don't know, and I repeat that ayah for you 10 times, you will have memorized it with a false memorization, like a quick memorization that won't last you, but you can memorize it. So you need to repeat more than you think. And you need to give the most attention to your recently revised Qur'an. So I divide the Qur'an into 3 parts. Okay. The first one is what you're making hifth of right now. So you haven't memorized it. The second one is what you have memorized and you have itqan, you're mutqin. You know it really well and you rarely make a mistake if ever. And the third is the new memorization where you've memorized it, but you might make some mistakes in it. And if you treat those 3 differently, inshallah, you will see the benefit in that, inshallah. So the one that you've memorized really well, it's sufficient for you to read, a juz a day and so on. Like you said, it's more than enough for you to do that for what you've memorized well. But that's not going to work for what you've memorized and you've got some gaps in it. That reading the juz a day is not going to help. So you need to give that like a special attention. So I'll give an example of a way to do that. And it's not the only way, and I'm not even going to tell you it's the best way. It's just one way of doing it, right? So let's just say that I want to test myself in Surah Al-Baqarah. And I start reading Surah Al-Baqarah and I've got someone checking me. I've got a teacher checking me, or I've got someone who's hafidh of that surah checking me and testing me. And if I don't find anyone, I'll test myself. Like I'll record my own voice and then I'll go back and read it from the Mus'haf and see. But in any case, I'm reading and I see that I make a mistake. Let's just say after 5 pages, I make a mistake. So up to 5 pages, I know that hifth is okay because I didn't make any mistake. And that doesn't mean it'll be okay forever, because the Qur'an escapes quicker than the camel that is untied. The Qur'an escapes quickly. But on that day, that hifth is fine. I'm doing okay. So now I made that mistake. Now I have a doubt. Now, is it the case that that mistake is a regular mistake that I might make, or is it just a one-off and I knew it straight away? But I'm going to flag it there. So I'm going to make sure that next time I start before there and I see if I'm making that mistake again. So I correct myself and then I start reading again and again and again and again. And then I see, let's say I finish 7 pages or 8 pages and then I make a mistake. And so every time I make that mistake, I'm going back and I'm going to give that more attention and more time to memorize. And then again, even after I've memorized it and I've read it 30 times, 40 times, and I think it's in my memory, I'm going to go back again and I'm going to test myself from the beginning. And then maybe, okay, I was okay with that. And I'm moving on to my next surah, next one. And then again, after a few days, I go back again to the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah and I start testing myself and I see, okay, did I make that mistake again or not? And like that. So you divide your Qur'an memorization into what you have hifz, which is your hifz is solid and you rarely, if ever, make a mistake. And that which you have where you start making mistakes, and that should be considered new hifz or weak hifz that needs strengthening. Now, alhamdulillah, it's not as difficult to strengthen as it was to memorize the first time, but it needs strengthening and you can't consider it to be memorized. You shouldn't say I've memorized it. You say it needs strengthening. And then what you're memorizing new. So yeah, you keep on memorizing new things. I don't think you should stop memorizing new things because otherwise, you might never continue. But you should give attention when you're making a mistake. Don't just pass that surah by and read the next surah. Like, I've made a mistake. Okay, now I'm going to give myself attention for that. And as you go on through the months, you should find that you're going further and further without making a mistake. And then your juz a day will help. Your juz a day helps so much when you have good memorization. But if you have bad memorization, that juz a day doesn't help. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You should keep doing it. It just doesn't help with that. You have to give some time aside to memorize that, what we call the weak hifz, the hifz that's not strong. And I believe you should give more time to your hifz that isn't strong than you should to new hifz. Because otherwise, it's like filling up a bucket and you have a hole in the bottom. You're just filling the bucket and the water is never getting any more because it's going out of the bottom and in at the top. So I personally think you should give more attention to your hifz, which is weak, than new hifz. Like, still do your new hifz, but don't do as much. So it maybe instead of doing a page a day or half a page a day, do less than that. But give more attention to your weak hifz. Starting from, for example, Juz Amma, until you can read Juz Amma without any mistakes. Regularly, consistently, day after day, you read it without mistakes. And then again, Juz Tabarak, you can read it without any mistakes. And you just keep going like that, inshallah. I think it's also important that you mix between reading from the Mus'haf and reading from memory. And I know some of the students of knowledge, what they do is that when they're reading, they read one juz from the Mus'haf, the next juz they will read from memory. The next one from the Mus'haf, the next one from memory. And then the next time they go through the Qur'an, they will go the other way. They will go, the one that they read from memory, they will read from the Mus'haf and so on. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but you need to have some time that you read from memory, but also still be going through the Mus'haf. And I believe one of the most important things is to go through the Mus'haf, at least a juz every day, just keep going through it. It's one of the best things you can do for your hifz. But like I said, your problem is you have 3 things, not 2. Maybe the problem is that you're seeing it as 2. My new memorizing, what I'm memorizing right now and what I have memorized. But if you see it as 3, what I've memorized and I know really well, what I've memorized and I'm a bit shaky on, and what I'm memorizing now, and each one of them you give a solution. So the stuff you've memorized really well, the solution is read from the Mus'haf. The stuff that you haven't memorized so well, give it time every day, starting from Juz Amma until you can read the whole Juz without any mistakes, and then so on and so forth, inshallah. That would be my advice based on my personal experience, because like I say, I feel that I had that situation happen to me many times in Qur'an, in Hadith, in other things where I just felt like I was that bucket of water. I'm just pouring water in the top and the water's coming out of the bottom. So you have to distinguish between those things. But there are better people to speak about this, and I wish that we could have someone who has spoken about it in detail, so that inshallah we could. I wonder if on Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyah, Sheikh Abdul Rahman spoke about it, because he's somebody I would love to hear his methodology for himself and for his kids. So I think he might have spoken about it on, if you have a look at the YouTube channel for Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyah. It's a project I'm involved with right now. I'm working on it right now. And me and Sheikh Abdul Rahman, we work together. But Sheikh Abdul Rahman is amazing in terms of his hifz. So if he has got a lecture on it on that YouTube channel where he spoke about how to memorize the Qur'an, that would be very beneficial, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, I'm not going to go for too much longer because we're getting close to iftar now. Who would you recommend from the English-speaking du'at? Wallah, you know what it is? I feel like that question, it's hard to do it justice. Because if I mention for you people, I'm going to be missing out people. And if I don't mention people, then it's going to go that, oh, is that because you think that they're bad or you think you shouldn't listen to them? It's very difficult, wallah. Like, I find it hard to recommend, because whoever I recommend, either, first of all, I don't know what that person is going to say tomorrow. I don't know what that person's going to say tomorrow. And I haven't watched everything they've said in the past. So I wouldn't be able to guarantee to you anything. I can't really speak on their behalf. And then on top of that, how many people I'm missing out that could be better than them? So I'm going to suffice. I mentioned to you Sheikh Abdul Rahman Hassan. We work together in Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyah. And I think, inshallah, there are many, many other people. Wallah, there are many, many amazing English-speaking du'at. And I think it's difficult for me to answer that question without doing a big injustice to a lot of people. Can someone decide to become a student of knowledge at any age, or does it have to be at a young age only? No, you can decide to become a student of knowledge at 98 years old, at 100 years old, if Allah Azza wa Jal gives you that long to live. If you have only a day left of your life, you can still decide to become a student of knowledge. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you. Don't ever think that being a student of knowledge is limited to being young. No doubt when you're young, your mind is more suited and your body is more suited. You know, your mind is a sponge and you can handle sitting for a long time without getting your back sore. But wallah, there are some scholars of Islam, they became great scholars of Islam and they studied after 40 years old and like they started studying when they were older. And we know people who started memorizing the Qur'an in their 70s or older than that. SubhanAllah, you can become a student of knowledge whenever you make the niyyah that that's what I'm going to do, and you start out on that path. You start on that path. And the aim is not to reach a destination, because you don't reach, there's no destination for you to reach. The aim is for you to die when you're on that path. That's all. It's not, it's not the case that you are gonna reach a destination. You start as a student of knowledge and you just keep walking on that path. You memorize more, you understand more. And wallahi, I believe what is so appropriate to mention here is the statement of Imam al-Shafi'i. He said, كُلَّمَا أَدَّبَنِي الدَّهْرُ أَرَانِي نَقْصَ أَقْلِ وَإِذَا مَا زِدْتُ عِلْمًا زَادَنِي عِلْمًا بِجَهْلِ. He said, every time that time corrects me, it shows me the deficiency of my intellect. And every time that I increase in knowledge, it just shows me how ignorant I used to be. So you keep going on that path of knowledge and you see, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe that I had that opinion. I can't believe that I didn't know the answer to that question. And you keep going through like that. You keep studying and you keep learning, and it's a lifetime process. But you can start at any age at all, inshallah ta'ala. And once again, I would recommend, and if you're interested in online learning, there are many great online platforms. I don't want to recommend one and say that's the only one. There are many great online platforms, but do keep an eye at what's going on with Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyah, AMAU, because the project that they have is so exciting, and they're really, aiming to provide an amazing product, an amazing service for students of knowledge who want to learn online. So inshallah, keep an eye out at that. You can find out more. To start off with, you can start at amauathome.com, and when you register, as they release the full courses, inshallah, you can find out more about that, inshallah. So this question, I'm learning Aqeedah from your Aqeedah Tahawiyah series. What else would you recommend learning Aqeedah to complement this? Allah bless you. That's beautiful. I think the Aqeedah Tahawiyah, we did a little bit of it, but we didn't finish the book all the way through because I only did it in the masjid when I was in the summer, and then we weren't able to finish it. But inshallah ta'ala, we will try to resume our Aqeedah classes, inshallah. The thing is, Aqeedah can be divided into many different parts and categories. But I want you just to divide it into two. The issues that relate to worshipping Allah. And the best books for those are the books of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala, like, for example, Kitab al-Tawheed, the three fundamental principles, al-Usul al-Thalatha, Kashf al-Shubuhat. And I have an explanation of pretty much all of them, inshallah, either on the SoundCloud from Kalima UAE, or where else do we have them? Just search YouTube or SoundCloud, one of the two. I have like three fundamental principles, the four rules, Kashf al-Shubuhat, and so on. And many other du'at have better explanations. But I would recommend in uluhiyya, as it relates to worshipping Allah, to begin with the books of Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala, all of his books on worshipping Allah. And then in terms of general Aqeedah, then definitely Al-Aqeedah Al-Wasitiyah by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and likewise maybe you could do Al-Hamawiyya or Al-Tadmuriyya by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. I have explanation of those as well, or I have an explanation of Al-Hamawiyya, but I don't think it's been released online. We're working on it, inshallah. And likewise, Aqeedah Tahawiyya is also is an excellent book in general Aqeedah. Memorizing the ayat and the hadith, that's amazing. And I think that's excellent. To memorize the ayat and the hadith that are mentioned is fantastic. Memorize those in Arabic with the references. That's amazing, inshallah. And then try to memorize if there are any important quotes or points. Write them down, like make bullet points. Like if there's an important quote that from the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah is that we believe ... and it's an important quote, then make it a heading, and then you can write the evidences for it underneath. So even, for example, I think it's excellent you follow the methodology like the book Kitab al-Tawheed by Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah. This book, Kitab al-Tawheed, the methodology is a chapter heading, followed by ayat and hadith, followed by bullet points. So if you make all your notes on Aqeedah like this, it's very beneficial. You write a chapter heading, like Iman increases and decreases. From the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah is that Iman goes up and down. It increases through obedience to Allah and it decreases through sins. And then you write down bullet points. So you write down ayat and hadith to prove it. Then you write bullet points, like just points of note. Someone said this, a sheikh said this, benefit from this, this scholar from the past said this imam said this. And you make bullet points, like to explain what you've written. And you make for yourself like that. And it's also beneficial, which is really beneficial also, is you take the actual book, like Al-Aqeedah Tahawiyah, take the book and make notes on the book. Like if the book has space in the margin, make notes on the book. So make notes on points of benefit and keep the ayat and the hadith and then memorize them. I think it's an amazing thing. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you. And inshallah ta'ala, this is an excellent way of learning Aqeedah, inshallah. But I would say just make sure that you're taking two types of Aqeedah. The general Aqeedah like Tahawiyah and so on, and also the Aqeedah that relates to worshipping Allah alone, like the books of Shaykh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, particularly Kitab al-Tawheed. Yeah. And I think you'll find if you're following my explanations, I have those already, inshallah. But inshallah, you can find better ones also if you look on YouTube from other speakers, inshallah. There's so many good questions. I'm just going to flick through. I'm going to go back. Don't worry. If you've asked a question and I haven't answered it, I'm going to go back next week and try to answer all of them, inshallah. Is it permissible to give zakah to a family member who has debt to pay off? First of all, by a family member, we have to be careful here. What is meant by a family member? Because there are family members that you can give the zakah to, and there are family members that you can't give the zakah to. So the family members that you can give the zakah to are those that you're not directly responsible for the nafaqah, for spending upon them. Like, for example, a man has to spend upon his wife, so he can't give her zakah, and a parent upon their children, so they can't give their children zakah. And likewise, the child upon their parents, so the child can't give their parents zakah. And we're going to cover this in Kitab al-Zakah and Bulugh al-Maram, inshallah. But in terms of wider family members, then yes, you can give them the zakah. Now, debt, the issue with zakah and debt is also a little bit of a complicated one. So first of all, I would say there are two things to bear in mind. First of all, that the debt is halal. The issue of haram debt, if they've made tawbah, that's a separate issue. We'll deal with that later, maybe in the zakah series. But if it's a halal debt, and if it is a debt that your zakah will make a difference to it, inshallah, like you can make a difference to them. There's no point in somebody gives something and then it just gets swallowed up in the debt and it doesn't make any difference to that person. It would be better that you give your zakah to someone that would make a difference to. Like someone has, like a huge mountain of debt, and your zakah is not going to make any difference to that. So that's something to bear in mind as well. But if a person, you can make a difference to them with your zakah and the debt is halal. But we can cover more about, I'll see if I covered all the points that I wanted to cover on zakah and debt. We're going to talk about it in detail, inshallah. We're going to talk about it in detail, inshallah ta'ala, as it relates to in the chapter of zakah. There's a quote from Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala. He said, paying zakah to relatives who are entitled is better than giving it to those who are not your relatives. And he said, similarly, if the brothers and sisters owe debts to people and you pay off the debts with your zakah, there is nothing wrong with doing that. That's because a person is not obliged to pay off the debt of his relative. So if he pays it with zakah, that is something which he'll be rewarded for. He mentioned it's permissible to pay a father's debt from the zakah here. He said, even if it's your son or father who owes a debt to someone and cannot pay it off, it's permissible for you to pay off your father's debt from the zakah. So long as the reason for this debt is not money that is your duty to pay. So this is to do with what we said about the fact that zakah, you can't give zakah to someone that it's your duty to pay for them. Now, it's your duty to look after your parents and so on. But in terms of their debt, Sheikh said you can pay it. And the reason you can't pay zakah to something that it's your obligation to pay is so that you don't lose out on your obligation. You don't skip your obligation by saying, oh, I'm not going to spend on my wife, I'm just going to give her zakah. Then you're skipping the zakah and you're skipping spending on your wife. But he said here that since it's not obligatory for a son to pay his father's debt, then he can give it from the zakah. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen also, he has a quote on this. So he said you can't give zakah to your parents, sons, or anyone who would inherit from you if they died. That's if it's for the purpose of maintenance. But if it's for paying off debt, then there is nothing wrong with that. You can pay the debt of your father, you can pay the debt of your son, and so on from the zakah. Now, so those are some extra points that we're going to mention, inshallah, in more detail in our Bulugh al-Maram series. Is it permissible to delay weaning a child who is now 2 years old, knowing that a mother's milk is best for the child's health? Well, I don't believe so, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا, that the pregnancy and the weaning is 30 months in length. And the shortest, that means the shortest the pregnancy is 6 months. So I don't think that it's that a person can delay the weaning after that. I will see if I can find. Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. That's what I can find. I'll see if I find more information about it. Inshallah, we'll share it with you, inshallah. A person asking if they can trim their beard in obedience to their parents. No, it's not allowed for you to trim your beard in obedience to your parents, because there's a principle, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience to creation in disobedience to the Creator, but you should be good to them. You should try to explain to them your reasons, and you should be kind to them when you disobey them in this. Is the folding of a prayer mat when it's not in use authentic? No, it's not authentic. We don't know of any evidence for this. People fold the corner of the prayer mat. We don't know any evidence for this at all from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, people say the most strange things. They say that if you don't fold the corner of the prayer mat, the shaitan comes to pray. If the shaitan came to pray, he wouldn't be shaitan in the first place. But I don't think there's any that I know of anything authentic in this regard. There are so many really good questions. There's just one question I wanted to deal with at the end, but I'm going to, inshallah, try to answer the other ones after that as well, inshallah, but we ran out of time now. But there's one question at the end about the pastry. Okay, one quick question that I can answer very quickly. Do you have to break your fast with a date? No, you don't have to break your fast with a date. It's not obligatory for you to break your fast with a date. But if you break your fast with a date, this is a sunnah. There's excellent questions. I'm not going to leave them, inshallah. I'm going to go back to them, inshallah ta'ala. Pastry sheets that contain alcohol. Okay, so the foods that contain alcohol are of two types. First of all, it's not allowed for a Muslim to use alcohol or purchase alcohol to mix in with the food. That's the first thing. As for the food that contains alcohol, and then in this we divide it into two types. The food that contains alcohol that is completely absorbed into the food. So there is no trace of the alcohol at all. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't, there's no trace of it at all. It's been completely absorbed. There is no change in color, there is no change in taste, and there is no smell. Then this, inshallah, there is no harm in this. This doesn't make it prohibited, even though the Muslim shouldn't make things with alcohol like that. But if you bought something and that pastry, it doesn't smell of alcohol, it doesn't taste of alcohol, and it doesn't have any, there's no sign of it whatsoever, but the ingredients say that it had alcohol in, then there is no harm in this. But if the effect of the alcohol is noticeable, and the alcohol remains, like after it's cooked and so on, then it's not permissible for a person to use this, even if it goes from cooking. But when you open the packet, it's clear that you can smell the alcohol that was used to preserve the pastry. Then this is not permissible. So I've seen this pastry that says alcohol in it, but I haven't really opened it and smelt it. Like, is it clear that there is alcohol? Has the alcohol been completely absorbed and disappeared, or is it still the alcohol is there and it goes through cooking? Then if it goes through cooking, I don't think this is right for a person to eat, because some of it may remain. But if it's the case when you open the packet, there is no trace of it, then it doesn't become haram. There is a fatwa in this regard from some of the scholars. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned this. He said that if it's mixed with something and it is not fully absorbed and does not disappear, then that thing becomes haram. But if it has been fully absorbed and no trace can be detected, then it's not haram. And this is though I would warn people as well about, sometimes when they cook food with alcohol, they put like wine in a sauce. Then I don't think this disappears. Like you may not be able to smell it, but it doesn't disappear when you put wine into a sauce. But maybe when someone has used alcohol for preserving something, and when you open the packet, there's no trace of it, no smell of it, no taste of it, then inshallah ta'ala this doesn't affect. But a Muslim shouldn't do that. I mean, the fact that we might buy from the shops and they used alcohol to preserve it, but A Muslim shouldn't do that, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Okay, let's have a look. I think that is all that I could manage to cover in this session. There are some really, really good questions that I haven't covered. There's at least 10 more excellent questions. So inshallah ta'ala, I am going to make an effort to cover those, and any questions that I skipped and I didn't answer, we'll go back to and we'll answer them inshallah ta'ala in the next session next week. But since there's only just about 10 to 15 minutes until iftar, I think we have to stop here, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Let me just have a look and see. There are some really good questions on the side as well. Is it okay to repeat surahs in the taraweeh? Yes, it's okay to repeat surahs in the taraweeh, inshallah, because the surahs in the taraweeh, Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. Read whatever is easy from the Qur'an. So it's okay for a person to repeat. If they didn't memorize and they want to read from hifz and they want to repeat some of the surahs, then it's okay for them to do that, because Allah said, read whatever is easy from the Qur'an. Is it allowed for a child who's 13 years old to lead taraweeh? Yes, absolutely. From among the Sahaba are those who led the salah at 6 years old or 7 years old. Can we pray Isha as soon as the time starts, then sleep, then wake up before suhoor and pray taraweeh? You can, but the sunnah is to pray the taraweeh after Salatul Isha. That's a big question. I think the question from the brother Mubin, which is about the roommate, I think if you post that on the Google sheet so that we can inshallah answer it next time in more detail, inshallah, we could answer that in more detail, inshallah. Brushing the teeth when fasting, we'll finish with that, inshallah. Brushing the teeth when fasting is something which I don't recommend you to do with toothpaste. Now, if you brush your teeth with toothpaste and you spit it out and you rinse your mouth and spit it out really well, then inshallah it doesn't break the fast. But it's still dangerous. You know, it's very difficult to get rid of the toothpaste, and it may be that you swallow some of the water. So it's better you brush it without toothpaste during the day, and that you can brush it with toothpaste before Fajr or after Maghrib or whenever it's easy for you. That's not a problem. But I recommend you brush your teeth without toothpaste during the day. But if you brush your teeth with toothpaste during the day, it doesn't break the fast as long as you're careful to spit all of the toothpaste out. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll try our best next week to get through the questions that have already been asked. So don't think you don't have to submit them again and again. The same questions come on my list, and I'll just tick off the ones that are answered, and the ones that I haven't answered, inshallah, we'll keep it for next week, inshallah. I will post you the link just now before I go, because we just want to make sure that everybody, let's post you the link so everybody has the link, inshallah, for the questions that they want to submit. In case I didn't answer anybody's question, I always try to answer everybody's question if I can. So I think it's this one. Like, this is what it seems to be to me. Let me try it out. Yeah, so you can inshallah ask the question through there, and we'll do our best inshallah ta'ala to answer as many of them as we can. So that's what Allah made easy for me to mention. Allah knows best. Wa salatu wa salam ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.